Let's take our viewers live now to the Chinese embassy in Canberra. The Ambassador Xiao Qian is addressing the media.
On the bilateral agreement between China and Australia 52 years ago, when we established diplomatic ties, the government of Australia recognized there's only one China, and Taiwan is a province of China. So this is a serious commitment from Australian government over the past several decades. And I'm aware that each and every government in this country has been reconfirming their commitment on this issue. I hope that the Australian side would respect Chinese sovereignty and territorial integrity, would practice its commitment of one China policy in words, in deeds, and to support openly the peaceful reunification of China.
Is there a
Ambassador,
Ambassador,
and there are questions.
I'm sorry, I just need to follow up.
Okay.
Sorry, is there a timeline for reunification?
Sorry, I really appreciate your question, and I really appreciate Ambassador's remarks on the Taiwan question. But as the host, I'm really glad to invite you by order, in order to answer, to take the question, and Ambassador will answer your questions respectively. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So we have MC. All right. Okay.
Ambassador,
Yeah, please.
Ambassador and Georgia finished Southern TV, Hong Kong, China. And would you please, how does China view the current China-Australia relationship?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. In my remarks, opening remark, I talked about our bilateral ties in the past 10 years. And thanks for your question. For our current relationship, I would just say we're in a very good very good shape. We're also at a very critical period of time. As I mentioned in my remarks earlier, we experienced a difficult time for several years until 2 years ago. And since then, we have been successfully changing that situation. The year of 2022 was a year of stabilization. President Xi met with Prime Minister Albanese. They agreed how to define our relationship and what's the direction for our future ties. And the year of 2023 was a year of immense improvement. A lot of bilateral meetings, discussions, exchange of visits, and dialogues and consultations have been conducted, covering most of the fields. And that year was highlighted by Prime Minister Albanese's visit to China. This year, the year just passed, the year of 2024 is a year of consolidation of the good momentum in our improving relationship, and it symbolizes a complete turnaround of the relationship, highlighted by Premier Lee's visit recent June. The reason I'm saying this is a critical period is that with efforts from both sides, we have successfully turned around the relationship through that 2 years' time. By turn around, I mean, it used to be a time that was just free falling, and we were experiencing such difficulties in almost all the fields, at almost all the levels. We have turned the relationship from derail back on the right track, from going down back to stabilization, and from moving to the wrong direction back to the right direction. We're happy about achievements over the past 2 years, but we're not complacent with where we are. So looking forward into the future, we're expecting, at least I myself expecting, move beyond stabilization, move further into development, because there are so many things, so many areas China and Australia share. We have been cooperating for several decades, contributing to the fundamental interests of our two countries. And there's reason for us to continue this cooperation. So looking into the upcoming years, we're expecting further development. Of course, there will be differences as two important countries. We have common grounds, we have differences, we even have disputes on certain issues. But for a mature relationship between two countries, we will always focus on our common grounds, focus on our common interest. We will always manage our differences wisely, maturely, in the way that where we will have the positive elements to be the dominant factors. We will manage the differences so that those differences are not going to disrupt too much or to define or to hijack of the overall relationship. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, I would like to invite Mr. McCarthy from Channel 7 to raise the question.
Oh, thanks very much. Ambassador, what impact do you think the reimposition of trade barriers or tariff barriers on China by the new Trump administration would have on our bilateral relationship between China and Australia? What economic impact would that have? And what messages would you like Australia to deliver through its relationship with the US to try and avoid that situation?
Well, thank you for your question. As ambassador in Australia, I'm mostly focusing on our bilateral ties between China and Australia. Of course, the United States, the biggest economy in the world, and carries significant influence in different parts of the world. So, what happens in Washington D.C. really has been a focus of attention throughout the world. I want to say that number one, the election in the U.S. is a domestic issue, so we're not going to comment on that. But we respect the choice of the American people. Actually, President Xi Jinping has already sent a message of congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump. We are looking forward to engagement with the new administration at the proper time. Second, I think the relation between China and the United States is now at a transitional kind of period of time. That's why the meeting between President Xi and President Biden was so important at the sideline of APEC in Peru. There were many things discussed between the two presidents. It's comprehensive, in-depth, and very constructive. There was a 7-point consensus reached between the two presidents as to how to manage the relationship during this period of time and perhaps in the longer run, including mutual respect, cooperating in the areas where we share common grounds, manage the competitive elements wisely, etc. So I think that so long as both Chinese side and the American side implement the consensus reached by the two presidents, we will have a stable transition in terms of the relation between China and the United States. Thirdly, of course, the U.S. policy on trade with China, with other countries as well, will have impact, and that is really an important element that we have to consider. Bilaterally, as ambassador in Australia, what I can say at this moment is that I expect the China and the United States to engage with each other to talk about each other's policies and how to manage our relationship at the time when, at a proper time. For example, when the new administration assumes office in the coming January. For China-Australia relationship, as my president pointed out during his bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Albanese, as to big trading nations, China, Australia, to maintain the globalization process, to safeguard the integrity of a global trading system, including WTO, to help enhance the free trade agreement, free trade between among countries and nation is very much important to our two nations, to the regions, and to the world. I think the first thing most for us to do perhaps is to continue the good relation and momentum between our two countries and see what we can do together to promote for global trade instead of compromising our respective national interest and our common interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'd like to invite Ben from Australia to raise the question.
Thank you, Ambassador. Donald Trump's administration is looking very hawkish on China. He's appointed a number of people to cabinet spots who have very hardline stances on Beijing. Do you have any concerns that Donald Trump's election in the US will alter or undermine in any way the stabilised Australia-China relationship?
Well, thank you, Pam, for your question. I think this issue needs to be seriously considered and needs to be discussed really between China and Australia as to what are the fundamental interests of our two countries, between China and Australia. We're responsible for our own people. Australian government is responsible for Australian people. We have common grounds, and these common grounds has been the foundation for our good relations for the past several decades. They are bringing so many benefits to our two peoples and two countries. And there's reason for us to be responsibly manage our relations bilaterally well enough, mature enough, so that our two peoples can continue to benefit. And there's no reason for us to compromise our respective national interest for the sake of a third party. As for the U.S. element, as I said, we're still in a transitional period of time. We're still now having President Biden as the president in the White House. So perhaps we need be a little patient until the new administration is some sort of office in Washington, D.C., see what bilaterally we can do between China and U.S., bilaterally what we can do, what you can do between Australia and the U.S., and what China, Australia can continue to cooperate together, and to help keep the good momentum in our bilateral relationships, and also to contribute to the region and the world. And I look forward to a constructive, productive relationship between China and Australia, irrespective of what has happened in other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, speaking of China-Australia or China-US relations, one thing pops up is the Chinese economy. So next question, I would like to invite Mr. Wang from the China Media Group to raise the question.
That's where we leave the ambassador there in Canberra, and very different tone to the wolf warrior diplomacy that we saw not that long ago from China. So it's a very different message we're hearing, a much more collegiate, cooperative message coming from Beijing and from their representative in Canberra.